Carissa. I am 26 and from a little town right outside of the Chicago suburbs. So it's about country-ish, but not too much country. I am a mom and a stepmom. I am a wife. I work in childcare. I do fireworks, fire eating, a little bit of a sprinkle of everything.
Same with me. I'm 26 as well. So today we're going to be having a conversation about our struggle / how we have overcome our battles with eating disorders. So we're going to be talking about our experience together. So for you, can you tell me how your eating disorder started?
So I believe that it was really a buildup of events just over life, from like a young age being told, oh, you can't wear this because it shows too much, or you got a little bit of a tummy, or your hair is this way. Just having those like insecurities put on, which kids nowadays are still having that, and it starts younger and younger and younger where they're getting those insecurities pushed onto them. It would be triggered by stress. And for me, it was more of a body dysmorphia where I would look at myself and be like, oh my God, look at my hips. Like, that's too much there. Look at my stomach. That's too much. My boobs, that's too much. Why is it like this? Some of it, like with it being from the stress, it would also run hand in hand with having depressive episodes where I just wouldn't want to eat. And then I would get these compliments on, oh my gosh, you look so pretty. You've been losing so much weight. And it was feeding into like, oh, well, then this must be a good thing. And I think I should keep doing it, I remember like at one time, my freshman year of high school, I think, my mom had found out that I would be skipping meals, or that I was just just really sad and not doing well mentally. And she had come to me and she'd been like, listen, you aren't alone in feeling like this. Like, you don't have to feel like you're alone. Come talk to me. Let me know when you're feeling like you don't want to eat, when you're so stressed out that you're breaking out crying all the time or like whatever. And I really wish I had taken advantage of my mom being like, hey, like, I am here for you, because I didn't. And then we enter into like high school where all of a sudden it's like, hey, you need to be like size 2, size 4, or like, what are you? Then you're all of a sudden just ugly, obnoxious. Your body type just isn't exactly what, is wanted. Added stress of peers and just media saying, hey, your size isn't right. This isn't what we want. You're too much of a woman. Because I would get in trouble all the time for wearing like clothing that other girls were wearing like less clothing, but because I had filled out a little sooner, it was like, hey, being a woman's a bad thing. This is negative. You shouldn't show this. And that would add to the stress. And then my parents got divorced I was 16 years old. And like, for me, that was just completely out of the blue. Like, there weren't signs. And growing up, I was a Latter-day Saint, so Mormon, for a term that maybe more people know. And when they got divorced, it was like earth-shattering. Everything that I thought was true and that I had really built up my life around was all of a sudden completely wrong, adding to that stress and adding to the desire to be able to control things. And I didn't realize I couldn't control everything. It just spiraled and spiraled, and eventually I started feeling more confident again with my body. And the stress was kind of leveling out, getting used to it. And I thought, all right, I got this under control. And then I went through a pretty bad breakup with my son's dad, and it was just pretty stressful, and I would not be able to eat again. I wouldn't be able to sleep. I was feeling so nauseous and so stressed out that I was losing weight pretty quickly. And again, I would be getting these compliments. Oh my gosh, you're so pretty. You have lost so much weight. I can't believe you're a mom. Like, which is like one of my, I don't like that compliment. But, you know, I weighed like 150 pounds around like 3-4 months after I had my son. And I'm 5'8". So like, that's like a healthy weight, you know? And then 2-3 years after that, after all this stress, I weighed 120 pounds at my lowest. And I remember just one day looking at myself in a family picture after we had gone to brunch with a bunch of our family members. And I remember looking at myself in this picture and I was like, holy crap, like this is not okay. Like I look like a ghost. Like I don't even look happy. And I thought that chasing after this ideal version that I had put into my head would make me happier, and it wasn't. It was just putting me in a really bad spot.
Like I found that it was also cumulative. It was just like all these things, all these different like pressures from like media for sure. Because I would like not even really realizing like how much it affected me and how I saw myself. Like I grew up and my mom got the Victoria's Secret catalog, you know, sent to our house weekly, and the Victoria's Secret catalogs were like what we would read like when everybody was using the toilet. So it was like every day, like looking through those images, seeing those images, thinking like, well, this is how a woman's body should look. And when I got into high school is basically when it started. I was like between 15 and 16. But
Okay.
mostly I would say more heavily at like 16, where I just like I started skipping meals, and it really became like such an obsession. And I was like just so meticulous about everything I was eating. I would like repeat to myself what I ate every day over and over again, just like checking like, what did I have? I had bread. Okay, I had, what did I put on there? And it was just like this constant, just completely consumed in that thinking.
Right.
And I also felt like I was in pain. Like I was in an abusive relationship, and at that time my relationship with my father wasn't very good. And on some level I felt like, well, if I starve myself, if I can show these people how much they're hurting me, maybe they'll stop hurting me. Maybe they'll like feel bad for me that they see that I'm so thin. And I also felt like you said too, that there was like this kind of like sense of like control in feeling like, well, if I don't feed myself, then I'll have this like idealized body shape and it'll help me get what I want.
Right.
Even though like I was so weak, I was working out like sometimes like 3 to 5 times a day, doing like different workout videos, and some days like just eating like a cereal bar. And it was interesting because not a lot of people in my life noticed something was wrong. Some people did. Like there were some of my family members, some of my closest friends that were like, you're really skinny, like, are you okay? But I had a lot of other people that are like, you look so good, like, what are you doing? You know, can I do it too? Like what are you doing to look so good? And it fueled it more.
Yes.
And yeah, I was really influenced as well by the people around me, because like I'm Mexican, so I have like some meat in certain places that like other women don't have. And when I was younger, there were just certain parts of me that filled out, and I was kind of like, oh, it's fat. It's not like, you know, you're just becoming.
You're not becoming a woman. Like, it's just like, it was almost viewed negatively. You're told like, hey, you being a woman is just not okay. It's not. This shouldn't be how it's happening, which is like almost strange because now we're in this different universe where it's like, hey, get the butt implants, get boob implants. Like, it's very interesting how the ideal body image has switched.
100%.
Ideal. In big quotations, by the way.
Exactly. What did this disorder look like and feel like for you? So like kind of like psychologically, how did it affect you, and like how did it affect you socially too?
So it affected me in just really taking over my thoughts. Like every time I passed by a mirror or my reflection, I would have to check, am I sucking in enough? Do I got my shoulders like back? How does my hair look? And checking like the scale like 2-3 times a day and logging it was a big thing for a little bit. And that was like, I'd feel so proud, like, oh my God, look at like the numbers dropping. But then like in the evening get discouraged just because I went throughout my day, and like that happens naturally where you're going to gain more weight throughout the day. And I would just get down on myself if I felt like I wasn't looking perfect, or if the number wasn't where I wanted it to be, or if I couldn't fit into a size 6 or a size 4 jean. It would just like really, really upset me. And I put so much focus into just what I ate. I remember my dad, he'd always be like, Carissa, you're eating rabbit food. Like, you got to eat more. You're eating rabbit food. Him and my grandma would be the ones to call me out a bunch. I'd be like, you guys just don't understand. You don't get it. But like that was definitely them like showing that they cared. Socially, at first, I felt like I was gaining more friends. I had started going to concerts and meeting some people. I had my friends that I'd go with, and I got really absorbed into like wanting to be a dancer. I wanted to be a go-go dancer super bad. And I would train at home, but I would also get stuck on this idea that I had to weigh less to be able to get into the industry. And I felt like my body type was just not going to get me where I wanted to go. So that put a lot of like weight on my shoulders that I was trying so hard to be able to dance, to be able to share like my love of dancing in front of people, that I was more focused on losing the weight so that way I could get that opportunity than trying to network and talk to people and like actually getting out there. And I thought I was getting there, socially I was making some more friends. Eventually it just started happening where like people, they just weren't there. And I felt like I was getting just more and more isolated. And I'm still not sure if the isolation was something on my account or kind of just a collective of how things were going. But it was very lonely. I just felt very lonely. And I didn't know what to do. And I just felt tired all the time. I was working a whole bunch, and when I wasn't working or taking care of my son, I was trying to work out. I was going on Pinterest all the time, saving workouts just constantly and trying them out, and just hoping for that relief, that the things that I wanted to control, the things that I would want, would finally come into fruition through this idea of what my body needs to look like for those things to happen.
I felt like as well, like I was like, okay, if I can look this way, then I'll get all the things that I want. Then people will find me beautiful and people will just give me things. Like that's literally what I thought. People will see who I am by achieving this. But psychologically, I actually was having like crazy dreams. Like the times that it was like at its worst, I would fall into sleep paralysis every night.
Okay.
Be like kind of like a heavy like shadow. It would kind of feel like somewhat of a masculine presence like sitting on my chest.
It's scary. I also would have that happen.
Really?
And and like it's scary. I remember just like waking up, but I don't know if I was actually awake, but my eyes were open and like I wanted to scream so loud and I just couldn't breathe. Like, and the same thing, like it was just like this dark presence and I couldn't escape it. I was just so frozen in fear. Like I could feel the tears going down my face, but I couldn't do anything at all.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Like and at the time that it was happening, like I was raised Catholic, so I mean we're taught that like demons are like a thing. And so
Yeah.
at the time I was like, oh my gosh, like if I tell somebody, they're gonna think I'm like possessed or they're gonna think like I'm crazy. So I didn't tell anybody for a long time. So I just kind of was like going to bed like so scared to even like fall asleep every night and not really knowing like what to do, but feeling like I always had to like push this like thing on me. And I was also just like consumed by it. Like I was just completely consumed by the thoughts of like what I ate every day, and I was consumed by like seeing progress, like seeing results. Like every day I would go in the mirror and like, whoa, lift up my shirt, like look at my stomach, and like if I, had gotten closer to the results that I want, then it was like, okay, good job. But if it was like worse or not what I wanted, it was like I would get even more like strict with like what I did that day. So like it was like I just wasn't present at all. I was not present. And socially, I just like noticed that in a way it's like I kind of wanted somebody to see that I was in pain, but I also didn't want them to see I was in pain. Like I would hide it. I would lie to people and say like I'm on a diet. And if people would address things to me, I would be like, no, I would like deny it. And I kind of felt like on some level I was keeping people at like a bit of a distance because I didn't want anybody to get in the way between me and like what I was trying to do to myself.
It's like that chase of trying to show everyone, hey, everything's perfect, everything's okay, when inside it's like this whirlwind and everything is unbalanced and you're not sure if you can keep it all together, but you just want to make sure that everyone else thinks that you can.
Exactly. And that's how I felt at the time too. Like I was just kind of like, okay, like I don't want anybody to worry about me. So, and then like I said, but at the same time, there were particular people that I wanted them to be like, what's wrong? Like, are you okay? And I think because I wasn't being emotionally like responded to, by like these masculine like figures in my life, like my boyfriend and my dad at the time. So I kind of felt like I like wanted that, but I was going about it obviously in a way that was like self-destructive. How did you feel about yourself through the disorder? So like, when you like looked at yourself, like did you feel like I'm beautiful, or like during the process of it, was it like really negative thoughts for the most part?
I think sometimes I felt like really confident about myself, but it was such a roller coaster, because some days it'd be like, all right, cool, like this is awesome, I look great, like I can't believe how much weight I've lost. And then other days it would just be like, I just want to lose more. Why isn't this working? Why did I gain like 6 pounds? Like it would it would really just be like a roller coaster. And it would really also have to deal with how much stress I was feeling, because I was not someone good at communicating when I was stressed out, because like how you were saying, like I didn't want people to have to worry. I would usually feel pretty okay during the daytime, but then like at night I wouldn't. I would feel so sick. I'd feel worried. I couldn't sleep. I was having nightmares constantly. Just really in this cycle of unhealthy habits because of my just behaviors, like in my thought process. My thought process turned into acting negatively towards myself in actions, and sometimes even acting negatively towards others. I would lash out at the wrong people occasionally. And when I say lash out, like, because I'm a very like mellow person most of the time. Like I would just like get very worked up. I'd start crying and sometimes be accusing, which was not like fair of me at all to do to other people. And I didn't realize that I was feeling that way so much because, well, I wasn't getting enough nutrients throughout the day, like just taking vitamins and eating very little is not the nutrients that our bodies need. There was a lot of unhappiness consistently, though. I know that I was like really depressed and dealing with a lot of anxiety, a lot of panic and fears, and those times were like really hard. Those were really hard times.
My anxiety was just like through the roof, and I was miserable. And I remember like it was so weird because I look back on it now and I see pictures, and I was so skinny, but like at that time I thought I was like so overweight. Like I would look in the mirror and look and think I looked like a beluga. Like I was convinced, and like I look back and I was like, oh my gosh, I was so skinny, and it was like as well. I had like these moments like where I would like look in the mirror and be like, oh, my stomach is as flat as I want it to be today. So I get this kind of like pseudo like confidence for like a day. But then I would like eat something and then I'd be too bloated, and I'm like, no, okay, now I can't eat until tomorrow at this time, and just one breadstick or something like that.
Yeah, definitely had similar thought processes like that and actions.
Yes. So how did you or how do you continue to overcome the disorder?
I do it through aerial arts. So I was really obsessed with wanting to be thin to become a dancer. And, I found hula hooping and I absolutely loved it. But I still had like this thought process of I needed to be smaller if I want to get up on stage. But then one day I was watching this video of a performer, and it was an aerial artist who did silks. And she just looked so strong, and her body was like curvaceous, she wasn't the typical like thin that I was like picturing in my head that you had to be to perform. And I was just so inspired by how strong she was, and that just different from the norm. And after I'd seen that, I really started to become mindful of, first of all, what kind of media I was watching, what kind of music I was listening to. Does this music promote like being extremely thin? Does it promote unhealthy habits in just day-to-day life? I really stopped following certain social media accounts that were very focused on, this perfection look. And it's been a process for sure. I stopped getting on the scale. I don't own one in my house. I think even if we did, though, I think at this point, I think I would be okay with it not being something I'd become obsessed about. because I really have found this love for my body. Some days it's not like completely there and I still feel like self-conscious, but that's normal.
Right.
I try to some days just like feel just not be feeling ourselves. It happens to everybody. And you know, through aerial arts, I have taken classes in silks and lyra and trapeze, and just seeing what my body can do when I eat the right amount of food, when I'm being healthy, when I am being more in the present moment. Like, it just amazed me that I could do this, that I felt really good and confident at something. And I've really stuck with the aerial arts. I let myself love the process of eating food. I started realizing, hey, this is a good time to hang out with my friends. Like, look at us talking, and really just like being present while I was eating it. Like, like, you know, is this Italian? Is this Chinese? Is this like some strange seafood that I've never tried before? I don't know. Like, just allowing myself to try these new experiences. And, you know, just I try to keep communicating. Sometimes it's not something that I'm exactly the best at yet. It's still a work in progress. But, you know, being able to communicate when I'm having just self-doubt. You know, I'm able to talk to my husband and he's always there for me. I'm able to go ahead and talk to my mom or to my sisters. And I also really love to share like what I went through, because I want other like young women or younger girls to feel confident, like sharing to either myself or someone else that they trust that they're going through something like that.
I had a moment where I felt so weak, and I was watching this movie called Cinderella Man. Have you ever seen that?
That sounds super familiar, so possibly.
I'm forgetting the name of the main actor right now, but basically the story is about this famous boxer during the Great Depression. And
Okay.
he is like one of the greatest fighters of all time. And I was like watching him in the ring in the movie and just watching like his strength, like to be able to fight. And I was looking at the TV and I like thought to myself, I was like, I can't fight like that right now. Like, I don't have the energy. I don't have like that muscle. I pretty much like lost, you know, all of my muscle for the most part. And I like left the living room and I like went and looked in the mirror and I looked at my body and I was like, I need to eat more. I definitely need to eat more. And then it was like a minute later, my dad like came in the door and he like called my name and told me to come into the kitchen, and he had like 2 cheeseburgers from Burger King on the table, and he was like, sit down and eat everything in both of these bags. And I was like, why? He's like, because he's like, you have a problem. He's like, tell me what's going on. And like, he wouldn't let me leave until I finished the burgers. And I just ate them like, just like sobbing, crying. And I was like, why couldn't you get me something healthy? I like kept saying that. And he was like, I'm going to take you to the doctor. Like, you have a problem. Like, we need to go. You need to get checked out. You need to make sure that you're okay. Over time, though, it was the same thing. I got more careful about the media that I was ingesting and was, you know, more careful to get like a broad range of seeing like so many different women's bodies, like not just skinny, not just big, somewhere in between, and, you know, curvy here and curvy there. And became like also more careful with the people I was surrounding myself with, like being surrounded by other women who do like love themselves and like themselves, because I was also, when I was younger, around girls who always pick themselves apart, like kind of like in Mean Girls, and they're like, oh, my pores are so big, like
Yeah. And the list goes on and on for them in that movie.
Like, my breasts smells bad in the morning. You know, being able to like to talk about it and being able to like even admit it to myself that I had a problem was also a big step in overcoming it and just having the awareness. Because even like now sometimes like I have thoughts like it'll be like I'm not really going to eat today, or I have thoughts where I'm like, okay, I would like for this thing on my body to look a little bit different, but I can tell now when the thought is a problem. Like now I can be like, okay, no, like that's not okay. Whereas like before I had no recognition to actually like love myself and to actually like accept myself. And I also think that with like the idealized body also changing, it definitely has helped. And with like recently, I feel like we see so many different types of people now in media, and I think
We get to see the full spectrum.
yes,
Really, I think it's beautiful.
and it's so helpful. And now I kind of feel like because my butt has always been like bigger than the rest of my body, and so I'm like, oh, now it's a good thing, you know. When I was younger, I was like, oh, my butt's fat, and like now I'm like, yeah, my butt's amazing. So that has definitely like helped. So what are your thoughts about Instagram models and the current trend of an exaggerated waist to hip proportion?
I think some people's bodies are that way naturally, and that's wonderful. A lot of Instagram models, I would hope, would express more just like a love for any body type, even if theirs is more on the thinner side, or maybe theirs is more on the larger side, or somewhere in the middle. And just expressing that we're all beautiful, but I know that's not what happens all the time, is that people who have a little bit more symmetry to their face or have a flatter stomach are getting these larger views, larger likes. And I know for some it's like, oh, well, maybe if I look like this, then I'm going to get all those likes. Like, I know I used to look on Instagram and be like, oh, I got to have those clothes. That way I'm more liked, or I've got to make sure I'm wearing makeup all the time, or my hair looks like this. So, you know, the list can go on and on and on how much I'd be comparing myself to other people's lives. It's just really unhealthy. Like, those are their lives, and everyone's got a different life to live. And it's hard to get out of that cycle of comparing ourselves to these seemingly perfect people, especially because we don't know their whole backstory, but we know our backstory. And it's so easy to become this judge on ourselves when everyone else is kind of putting out their best picture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've really been enjoying seeing the posts lately on Instagram of different women showing how different poses affect how your pictures are going to look, to show like, hey, look, I can look like I don't have any cellulite or stretch marks in this pose, and no, like, no extra meat here or there. And then they show like, oh, wait, but if I'm like this, like, here's my stomach, here's a bit of cellulite. Like, this is just how the body is. And I think that is really important to do, because our bodies are just these beautiful works of art. Absolutely beautiful. I mean, we don't even understand fully how the human body works. So I definitely think like the standard is changing. I think we're becoming more accepting of just different body types through different social media outlets. I think a lot of major brands are also trying to show different body types, which is great. But I know that there's still definitely like that pressure out there that a lot of people feel to look a certain way, especially when they see that these people on Instagram or Facebook, whatever, people show their best light. And I think especially with how rocky the world has been lately, a lot of people are feeling stressed out. They're feeling down. They're feeling worried and out of control and need to seek unhealthy habits to gain some of that control back, because it'll just spiral back into more unhealthy habits, when right now we all really need to be there for each other and be working towards making things better. Like personally now, I feel a lot better since finding something that I feel confident in, and surrounding myself around circus people. Like there's so many different kinds of people that I really didn't get to experience before. And it's being able to build my strength again and really get my social skills back up, and feeling like I'm making these connections. Again, it's all started from wanting to just be healthier and stronger, wanting to be there more for people. And I found that once I started really focusing on my health and wanting to be stronger, wanting to be more open with people, I started dancing more in front of other people. I've gotten to go to flow festivals and teach hula hoop. I got to go to Sonic Bloom, which is a festival in Colorado, and I got to perform there and teach there last summer. And I performed for a couple of other flow festivals in like the Chicago area, and that's all I wanted to do. And it didn't get to start happening until I started caring more about myself.
I do think that, like, as much as there is like this shadow for, with social media, I do think that there is so many good things that have come from it, because we do have the ability to see so many different types of people, and I feel like I do my best to follow a lot of accounts where I'm following a lot of people with different body types, so I'm not just seeing, one body type. And I try to follow, women who are, successful, who maybe do, look like me or look different than me, just to know that there's so many different types of people having so many different experiences, and that, you can also have them, they're not out of reach just because you don't look a certain way. But I'm so glad to hear that, like, you've been able to dance and that you've, like, been able to really, like, express that. I personally just think that, like, when we like love ourselves and we feel like we're ready to, like, be deserving of something, it'll happen.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, I remember, like, it was just one day where I had this negative thought about myself, and, like, instantly this other thought in my head popped up and said, why are you talking to yourself like that? That's not okay. You're like, it was just this huge positive just voice in my head, and I was, like, in tears from it, because it was the first time I was hearing my own thought process get back to a state of, like, wow, I'm my best friend. I'm here bringing myself up. And, like, that day was such a change. I started having more positive thoughts just about my situation in life, where I was going, and I was able to combat the negative thoughts more often with healthier ones, with loving ones. And that's really when things started changing, was when my thought process was changing. It had nothing to do about my physical appearance. It had everything to do with what I was telling myself.